Yeah, my name is Salman. I'm the founder of Platable.
Good to see you.
And I'll dive into the problem firsthand. 1/3 of all food produced globally goes to waste, and this costs the world about $1.2 trillion in food waste. Not only that, it has a massive impact on the environment, contributing to over 10% of global GHG emissions. And all of this while 800 million people across the globe are trying to get access to good food when we as a society are producing enough to feed them 2 times over. At Platable, we are looking to address this problem specifically in the consumer retail space to begin with, and we are doing it by creating a marketplace to connect consumers to the surplus unsold inventory that would otherwise go to waste and enabling them to buy it at a reduced price. We've done this enablement through a mobile app which is currently live on the App Store and the Play Store. Consumers download the app, browse the various food outlets around them, and reserve it to either pick it up themselves or they can decide to get it delivered at a specific time slot. For now, we've kept the business model fairly simple in order to have the least amount of friction. We charge a fixed 15% commission for each and every order that we bring into our partners. The consumers don't pay anything as of now, and we'll be focusing on enabling other forms of revenue soon after. The market size is massive. The food surplus market globally in the consumer retail space is about a $250 billion segment. US, UAE and KSA are the leaders in the space, unfortunately, in terms of food waste. They waste about 40% of the overall food that comes into the country. It's an $18 billion food surplus market going to waste, and if we even look at addressing 10% of the segment, we are looking at a $1.8 billion market.
Okay.
The timing couldn't have been better. The whole region is moving towards being more sustainable, and we want to be one of the drivers for helping the leadership and consumers in the region achieve the goal of reducing food waste by 50% by the year 2030 as a part of the sustainable development goals for the region. The overall food ecosystem has massive players in the space. We have Talabat, Kareem, Hunger Station out of KSA. But there's no one currently addressing the surplus food space. That's where we intend to focus. There's one other company based out of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia called Baraka. And we want to be in the business of helping F&B outlets sell their surplus inventory, be more profitable and sustainable at the same time. We intend to be different by initially focusing only on the UAE market. There's no major competitor in the UAE market currently. We want to come in addressing the cafés and bakeries segment first because that's the easiest to address and they have the largest percentage of food waste. But our next focus in phase 2 is going to be to go after the dead stock and close to expiry stock at supermarkets and manufacturers. That's the much larger volume segment. Even though the percentage is smaller, it's much larger. And that's when we will enter KSA as well. Being a larger market for the region, everyone wants to go after the big animal in the MENA. And in terms of traction, we've gone live on the App Store and the Play Store. We've been beta testing over the last 3 weeks and have got over 350 organic downloads, have processed over 150 orders in the last 3 weeks. We've also signed partnerships with Dunkin', Costa, Krispy Kreme, Common Grounds, to name a few big brands. However, we are looking at enabling them cluster by cluster in order to increase the efficiency of our marketing spend. So we are taking DIFC as the first cluster to launch with, and then focusing on Barsha and so on and so forth. In terms of the team, I'm Salman. I've already got introduced to you guys. I have over 11 years of experience building commercial functions and startups in the region. Along with me is my cousin and my co-founder in the tech whiz, Mustafa. He had earlier built Postmates, and his claim to fame is that if you've ever used Uber, he's the one who's built the checkout at Uber. So he has 1 million people using his code every day. Apart from the two of us, we have a team of 7 people, including the two of us. It's a team of 7 focused on building tech, product and UI UX. And we have 2 people who are ex-Pika, ex-Carriage, currently working on building out the supply side of things. In terms of the ask, we are currently also raising a pre-seed round of $500,000. The main intention of this is to reach PMF, especially in the UAE and the region, doing 100,000 orders and having at least 500 vendors actively transacting on the platform. We will also use the funds to build out the product further and be able to cater to the supermarket dead stock and close to expiry segment that we were mentioning. And out of this, we've currently already got commitments for close to 350K. Still running around, so maybe we get some money here today too.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's it. You can download the app, and I think you might have already heard about me. I'm active on the group talking about people to download, but yeah.
Salman, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great pitch, clear, well-designed slides as well. So well done there. And it's a very clear problem that you're solving for. Let's jump into a couple of questions. Why has Too Good To Go, the leader in Europe, not expanded to the UAE or to the GCC?
So Too Good To Go 3 years back raised a massive round to expand into the biggest market of all, the US. And they're currently focused on expanding to over 20 cities in the US. Their sole focus is US as of now. Also, the recent market they entered was they went back to Australia. They had pulled out of Australia. They've recently expanded into Australia. We are also speaking to a couple of people who have worked at Too Good To Go before and have it in good confidence that they will most probably enter this market, but maybe somewhere down the line in 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so when that happens, not if, but when that happens, what's the defensibility? What's the play of Platable to make sure that there's not going to be a Too Good To Go?
So one thing about the surplus food segment is that if you solve it right, and if you're the first person to solve it right, then there's only certain limited amount of inventory that can be sold out. So if I'm the one selling all the surplus for Dunkin', they have no reason for onboarding another platform, because it just makes it more cumbersome for them to update that limited amount of inventory on multiple platforms. So it's not like any other food tech platform, but only one person can exist.
So speed is of the
space.
essence then.
Yes.
But this is a US brand, and if they've already conquered the US, surely it makes sense for them to just have an agreement across both countries.
No, so we have, so they've already heard about Too Good To Go back in Europe and in the US. It's a European brand. It's one of the few Danish unicorns out there. And they want to solve the problem, but they don't have people solving the problem across the board, right? Across multiple regions. Too Good To Go is the only big player who does it successfully. Also, what another point that we've noticed is people usually look at the number of consumers that are there in order to define the market, but they often miss out that in terms of per capita wastage, the MENA region is by far the biggest, right? So it's number one is Saudi has 420 kgs of food waste per capita. Just to give you comparisons, it's 120 on the average for European countries, right? So we are doing 3 orders of 3 in magnitude. So there's a much bigger segment to address, even though the consumer base might be slightly smaller.
I have a question regarding the consumer base, right? So first of all is stock. So I used Too Good To Go when I was in Spain. So they give steep discounts on products which are unsold, probably close to ending of their shelf life. You mentioned about 15% as your commission. So the unit economics for such a food delivery business, it's quite expensive. And if there are steep discounts on stock which is about to be sold, how would you probably be breaking even? It would probably take you more. And secondly, the consumer base is 10 million over here, but whereas in Spain and in Europe, it's much bigger than that. For example, Spain was 35 million, and that's why they were being able to sustain over there. So what are your thoughts on sustainability?
So one thing, in order to, what you're saying is absolutely right. The basket size is normally, so you would think of it in a way where you're already discounting the particular product so much that your commission take rate is very small.
Right.
But what Too Good To Go does perfectly well, and what we've also learned from them, thanks to them doing the same thing for a long time, is that it's never a specific product that we sell. So you say, for example, we have Dunkin' on board. We never sell the chocolate donut at Dunkin' at a discount. It's always a surprise box that gets handed out to the consumer, and because it's a surprise box, you can raise the average order value by saying that the minimum price that you have to pay for a surprise box is say 50, but then you ensure that you get 100 dirhams worth of product.
So it will not be higher than going to a Dunkin' and purchasing.
It won't be. So the other way to put it would be, you could go to Dunkin' and buy 3 donuts for 24, but you could end up buying on Platable and you could get 6.
Okay.
right? But so the order value still remains the same, but you essentially get more worth for your money than, and that's how we ensure that we keep the take rate and commissions
And how are you
high.
taking care of the logistics bit? Because you'll have delivery done by yourself, or
So we want to primarily drive pickups.
Okay.
Because pickups is
Makes
where
sense.
we make the maximum amount of money, and that's the reason why I mentioned we are taking a cluster-focused approach.
Yeah.
The only way pickups work is when it's convenient for you to actually step down and get something rather than wait 35-40 minutes for a driver to come in something that's right below your building, right? So we want to primarily drive pickups on the model.
Okay.
We are testing out deliveries currently also because consumers in the region are spoiled for convenience. Right? Let me put it that way. Like everyone would rather pay 10 dirhams to get something delivered rather than have to walk down and get it. So we might do deliveries, we will charge for it nonetheless in order to still drive pickups more. But well, if you are ready to pay for it and get it delivered, we are none the wiser to tell you no, right?
Salman, I'm familiar with this model. I've seen multiple founders trying to really tackle this issue in this market over the past 2.5-3 years. So with that, hurdles that they've faced have been the brands don't necessarily want to be perceived as discount brands. And as a result, whilst brands still have this problem of food waste, they're not willing to onboard themselves to a platform that aligns with discounting food, even though there's an environmental benefit. Equally, on Kareem, I can buy a fairly substantial lunch delivered for 25 to 35 dirhams regularly. So with that in mind, you've got a very price conscious demographic in the UAE as well. How are you essentially navigating this balance between price conscious, value of a lot of food for 3 meals for the price of one, and environmental consciousness?
So let me address the first part of your question, right, where you mentioned that brands aren't particularly very receptive to a certain idea like this, because of course as a brand I don't want to be perceived as someone who discounts food. It cannibalizes my own brand value and it's a loss of revenue, right? At the end of the day, if someone's ready to buy something at 30, why should I sell it to them at 15? And we've had a couple of, I won't name them, but we've had a couple of vendors who've tried it, and we've spoken to vendors to actually understand why they never liked the idea or why they never pushed it. And that's because everyone who tried it would list out specific items. So you could go to LDC and buy, say, their chicken Caesar wrap, right? And when you do that, what ends up happening at the end of the day is, as Elliot, who's a customer who normally buys at, say, 55 dirhams that chicken Caesar wrap, will now wait for a certain time slot to get it at half the price if you're okay with it, right? And that leads to them losing out revenue, because you have a customer who has the intent to buy at full price now getting converted to buying at half the price. And that's why brands don't particularly prefer the model. Now, what Too Good To Go, again coming back to the leaders who've done it, did right was they only ever sold surprise boxes. So you could buy, so when you go, let's come back to the example at Platable. So on our app at Common Grounds, you can buy a wrap box, but you don't know which wrap box you're going to get. So if you're very specific that you want the chicken Caesar wrap, you can buy it at full price. But if you're not very specific, the quality of Common Grounds is amazing. You know that the wraps are normally priced at 60 dirhams. You get to buy it on our platform for 35. So the quality is going to be nice. You get it at 2 p.m. instead of buying it at 12 to 1. You get it at 2 p.m. in DIFC. It's a win-win, right? They get to sell it to someone who would have otherwise not bought. So it could either be Elliot, who loves the brand but doesn't care what he gets, or it could be Salman, who's never thought of paying, who's not comfortable with paying 50-55 for a normal lunch, but would rather pay 30 dirhams for getting access to food from Common Grounds, right? As long as it's Common Grounds, I don't care. And that's what helps them decide what goes into the box and doesn't cannibalize their own brand value, and lets them actually generate revenue from a source that was non-existent up till now for them in the region.
Shout out to Common Grounds. So
those
you
3 months.
launch a pilot in June.
Yeah.
But you said you're doing a soft launch in September. What results have you seen thus far from that pilot?
So the first time we did like a soft launch, we had a lot of issues with onboarding brands, and that's what we had to sort of crack and figure out. Brands wanted us to be live with other brands in order to come on board. Nobody wanted to be the first person on the platform, right? So it took a lot of time for us to get that first convert, and then the ball started rolling. And from the consumer side, we've learned that, like I mentioned, some people wanted deliveries. They weren't comfortable with the ideas of pickup, even though we were trying to drive pickups in the beginning. And as they progressed, we started sort of convincing them to go and try out pickups instead of having to spend more money. And price. So two things we wanted to understand was the customer behavior in terms of pickups and deliveries. That is what was primary. And number two was to understand if they would like the idea of buying a surprise box. So quality and price was the combination that we needed to figure out, and giving deliveries on the platform was something that got us to that decision also. So
Good. Pleased to hear that.
Glad to hear with the initiatives that you're taking in terms of reducing wastage. So thank you, Salman, for being here with us. And
thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, and well done on the pitch.
yes,
Thank you.
Indeed.
Cheers.
Thanks.
So Elliot, that was our last pitch for today.
Yep.
How do you feel that went? And generally overall, do you feel there was something that maybe caught your interest today?
Look, they all caught my interest. The foundation of and denominator of VC is good quality deal flow. And the fact that that we can invest from pre-seed to B means we're constantly on the lookout. With Salman at Platable, he's solving such a large, prevalent issue, and that's exciting. I haven't seen anyone crack it in the same capacity that Too Good To Go have, but I admire his vision and his approach. When it comes to Maction, Christiana, she's got huge domain experience with millionaires and billionaires and that bespoke matchmaking. That's going to be a competitive USP as she grows the business. Again, it hasn't quite, in my opinion, reached the inflection point of the volume and adoption. And I'm not sure how she plans on scaling it beyond the UAE at this stage.
Right.
With regards to GetDesky, it's a very competitive market, not just in the region, but globally. So really excited to see how they manage to deploy and basically attract more and more leads and convert them, not in a 6, 12, 18-month sales cycle, because that will ultimately lead to their demise, but in a PLG-led focused.
Absolutely. And just one other question is, we had asks between $500,000 to, let's say, $1.5 million. Is that a reasonable ask in this seed stage round that many audience members also would like to know that it's too much, when is it too less?
Yeah, great question. So I think what's worth mentioning is that a round doesn't happen overnight. There are many facets and often delays to making a round happen. Equally, within the same round, there may be investors coming in and putting checks at different valuations. So for example, GetDesky is raising, I think, 550. Is that
Yes,
right?
550.
So they're raising 550. Let's say it's on a convertible on a safe note. The cap on the first investor, maybe yourself, maybe, I don't know, 4 million. And then a couple of weeks go by, you tell me about it, I like it. Okay, I'll put the same as you, or double what you're putting in. So it hasn't. You're putting in 100k, maybe I'm putting in 200k. We're now at 300k. My valuation might be 4.5 million. And then we influence and persuade Sam, and he jumps in and he puts in the bigger check to close the round. And you may negotiate with the founder at the 4 million or the 5 million accordingly. I think it's very important that founders recognize how hard it is to fundraise, how long it takes to fundraise, and to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, look, Elliot, thank you so much. And also on behalf of all our viewers as well, I think it's so valuable to really delve into like your mind, what you're looking for, and the types of grueling questions that you have for the guest as well. So on behalf of us at Sandpit and our followership as well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The pleasure is ours. I always endeavor to not only critique and add value to the founders, but in a position of privilege where we're broadcasting this to a larger audience. Hopefully the listeners have learned a thing or two about how we as investors see the world. Ultimately, it's about risk reward. Which vehicle is going to take us to the 10, 20, 100x, perhaps even more returns that we're anticipating in the quickest capacity? And sometimes that is a very, very difficult decision to be able to make.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have a pitch that you'd love to send in for consideration from our investors or even to be on the show, please do send them in. Our contact details are in the description and all those places where we might put it. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks.